Aphasia. Aphasia is an acquired communication disorder, meaning that it can only present itself by product of stroke or traumatic brain injury. Did you know that strokes are the leading cause of aphasia? Today, let's examine aphasia and its various subtypes. To review, there are two types of strokes, the first being an ischemic, where there's a blockage in the blood vessels, and the second being a hemorrhagic, where there's bleeding from the vessels. Pictured here, hemorrhagic on the left and an ischemic stroke on the right. The commonly known language centers of the brain are the Broca's and Wernicke's area. Broca's is where, pictured in the red here, is where we house our expressive language skills, and Wernicke's, pictured in blue here, is where we house our receptive language skills. Don't forget about the arcuate fasciculus that is the link between the both of them. However, there are other subtypes of aphasia, such as anomic, conduction, global, or transcortical, where symptoms range from expressive to receptive deficits, with each presenting with different strengths and weaknesses. Some may be fluent, some may be able to comprehend, and some can repeat words or phrases. Knowing the intricacies of the cortex, let's explore the speech and language implications of certain lesions in the language centers of the brain. Overall, how can this information assist therapists and neuropsychologists in understanding and implementing the best therapy route? Well, in a study looking at lesions in the subacute stroke population of 325 patients, the researchers found that, although a few patients had lesions in the typical language centers but did not present with aphasic symptoms, majority of the patients displayed lesions in the typical language centers with aphasic symptoms, such as Broca's aphasia with frontal lobe lesions or global aphasia with damage to the middle cerebral artery. In another study completed in 2010, researchers found an association between lesion location and poorer recovery. When examining 100 patients who had their first stroke, the researchers found there was a link or association between lesions in the putamen and poorer recovery, or lesions in the transverse temporal gyrus and poorer recovery. Here we can see the putamen highlighted in red of the basal ganglia. And here we can locate the transverse temporal gyrus. Using an MRI and aphasia severity scale, researchers were able to find links between these areas and poor recovery with their overall speech and language skills. In 2013, researchers also conducted an interesting study looking at the breakdown of aphasia subtypes and etiology in a subacute stroke population of 1,796 patients. After grading lesion severities with the National Institute of Health Stroke Scale and using modality MRI techniques, researchers found there's the etiological factors that may contribute to stroke and eventual aphasic syndromes, such as anomic with small vessel disease, pictured here, where the vessel is occluded and the blood may not be able to flow through, creating an ischemic stroke or a blockage, or global aphasia with cardioembolic reasons, pictured here, where there's a blood traveling from the heart up into the brain. Wernicke's had equally cardioembolic and hemorrhagic reasons, and Broca's and transcortical lesions, aphasia, had lesions located in the thalamus and the white matter, which are typical areas involved in expressive aphasias. Now, how can this information on lesion location and aphasia etiologies help therapists with aphasia recovery? Let's examine melodic intonation therapy. Melodic intonation therapy is a treatment for non-fluid types of aphasias where patients learn to use intonation and rhythmic speech patterns to produce functional speech again. Singing/melody is rooted in the right side of our brain, and spoken language is in the left side of our brain. However, with lesions located in the left side associated with aphasia, if we are stimulating the right side through singing, this is another route to recovery. How interesting. Therapists use a hierarchy with patients, beginning using a high to low inflection of tone while producing functional phrases such as bathroom, more water, go to bed. Overall, understanding lesion location, stroke etiology, and aphasia etiology will provide therapists and neuropsychologists with greater information on how to provide the best evidence-based practices. Do you know the signs of a stroke? Remember the acronym F.A.S.T. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty or slurring of your words, and T for time. It's time to call 911. Time is significant to stroke recovery.